We learned how the puppet masters gained control of the Fed and used the money printing machine to enrich themselves and impoverish other people. You see, I uncovered how the puppet masters plan to control all the money, including the 130 trillion they've pledged to their cronies. CBDCs. You see, in the last few years, we've seen two structural changes. Number one, there's been a massive move away from cash, and number two, there's been ever-increasing centralization. Nigeria just a few weeks ago restricted all cash withdrawals, and that is how the puppet masters will enforce the switch to CBDCs. Only 0.5% had adopted their CBDCs, despite over 50% using crypto. And what happened? The puppet masters forced them to switch by no longer recognizing cash. I mean, that should tell you just how forceful the puppet masters are willing to be. The end of cash will be the end of your freedom, but these changes began already in 2020. By now, over 86% of central banks are planning on implementing CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. But wait a minute, if the central banks want to implement their own crypto, surely that's a good thing, right? I mean, we know how transparent and at times secure cryptocurrencies can be. I mean, after all, cryptocurrencies are meant to be decentralized, just like American currency used to be before the Federal Reserve. And cryptocurrencies are also secured by cryptography on a distributed ledger, which is a blockchain that is publicly available. And some cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, are inherently deflationary with a set amount of them to ever exist. I mean, especially with how inflation is, that all sounds like the perfect move for central banks, right? Not quite. You see, the central banks don't want a cryptocurrency, they want a digital currency. So what's the difference? I mean, it may not sound all too different, but these two concepts are worlds apart. Whereas a cryptocurrency is decentralized, a digital currency is centralized in nature. That means that the central banks will issue the currency, no mining like there is with Bitcoin. Now, we already know that the central banks can issue currency whenever they choose, and digital currency will be no different. Whereas cryptocurrencies offer at least partial anonymity on the blockchain, CBDCs will act as an extension of the government. You see, CBDCs will simply be the digital expression of your fiat money. But how will that work, and why is that such a big deal in that case? Well, there's one aspect of CBDCs that I haven't mentioned yet, and it makes all the difference. CBDCs will be programmable. And let's get back to that in just a moment, but with the introduction of a CBDC, the government will keep track of all transactions with that currency. There will be no transparency, and there will be no anonymity. Instead, all the power will be given to the government. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means that every time you spend $1 digital dollar, the government will know exactly what you spent it on. Now, that may not sound like a big deal, but it is. You see, the way you spend your money is a reflection of you as a person. In some way, it's even the ultimate reflection of who you are. And that's why the old adage of put your money where your mouth is so powerful. You see, based on your spending, the government will be able to form a complete profile on you. Now, if that's not dystopian enough to ward you off, let me tell you about the other piece of the puzzle. Here's where things get really dystopian. Remember how I mentioned CBDCs would be programmable? Well, what does that mean in practice? Let me paint a picture for you to really illustrate. It's 2030, the year the World Economic Forum's predictions all come true.